Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Before there was dawn, before the first bird called the sun awake, the sky and the earth were one. They lay entwined in endless stillness. Nut, the goddess of the heavens, and Geb, the god of the fertile earth. Their love was vast and wordless, a silence so deep that even time hesitated to pass between them. Nut's body curved over the world, painted in stars and mist. Geb's laughter was the sound of rivers forming, his breath the pulse of the first roots below. In their embrace, the universe slept, a cradle of warmth and shadow. But Adam, the Creator, looked upon them and saw that the world could not grow while sky and earth remained one. Nothing could rise where all was already held together. So he summoned Shu, the god of air, and spoke with the voice of dawn itself. Breathe between them. Let there be space for light to move and for dreams to wake. Shu obeyed. With a sigh that rippled through eternity, he placed his hands between Nut and Geb and began to lift. The stars trembled. The rivers shuddered. Nut cried out, not in pain but in longing. Her voice became the whisper of night winds. Her tears, falling upon Geb, turned into the morning dew, a soft reminder of her touch. As she rose, her body stretched across the horizon, her skin glittering with new constellations. Geb reached upward with trembling mountains, desperate to hold her once more. Every peak was a memory of their love, reaching into the void. And thus the world was born, not from creation but from separation. The first dawn did not rise because the sun appeared. It rose because love learned how to let go. From the space between them came life, the breath of Shu, the tears of Nut, the laughter of Geb. Every heartbeat since that day has carried their rhythm, the pull of what once was, and the ache of what still longs to return. And as the stars turned, Nut gazed down upon the sleeping earth, her voice a lullaby to the world she could no longer touch. Sleep, my beloved. Even distance cannot end what dreams remember. When the world began to spin beneath her, Nut watched in silence. Below, the rivers of Geb shimmered like silver veins, carrying life through the sleeping land. Above, her stars burned softly, each one a thought, a memory, a dream that refused to die. Though she stretched across the heavens, she could still feel him. The pulse of the earth, steady and slow, whispering through the dark. Sometimes, when the night deepened and the stars dimmed, Nut closed her eyes and imagined herself falling back into his arms, back into that warm stillness before the dawn was born. But she knew she could not, for Shu stood between them, his arms forever raised, his breath the barrier between love and chaos. He held the weight of heaven and earth in his body, and his silence became the wind. And yet, even in separation, their love found a way to speak. When Nut wept, rain fell upon Geb, and flowers bloomed in answer to her sorrow. When Geb laughed, thunder rolled across the skies, and Nut trembled with the echo of his joy. It was a conversation without words, an endless exchange between longing and response. Each dawn was a message from Nut, painted in color and gold, whispering, I am still watching. Each dusk was Geb's reply, a slow descent of warmth, murmuring, I am still waiting. The mortals below knew nothing of this quiet ache. They looked upon the sky and called it beauty, upon the earth and called it home. But in truth, what they saw was a love story written in space and silence. And sometimes, when the wind carried the faint cry of a bird across the horizon, Shu himself would smile. He, too, could feel their love move through him, the breath that never ceased, the rhythm that even time could not unmake. Far above, Nut dreamed of the day she might descend again. In her dream, she became the night itself, flowing downward in waves of shadow and starlight. She reached for Geb, her hands dissolving into mist, her voice a melody the gods themselves could not name. But as she touched the earth, dawn broke, and the dream vanished. Only the dew remained, glistening softly upon Geb's chest like forgotten tears. And so the sky learned how to dream without waking, and the earth learned how to love without touch. There are moments between day and night when the world seems to hold its breath. When the sun pauses at the edge of the horizon, uncertain whether to rise or fall. It was in such a moment that Nut's tears first fell as rain of gold. Each drop carried memory, the warmth of Geb's laughter, the scent of his soil, the echo of their unity long lost. As the rain touched the earth, flowers bloomed that had never known the light, and the rivers shimmered with a strange, celestial glow. Geb felt her sorrow seep into him, and from his heart grew forests to cradle it, roots reaching down as if to keep her presence close. He whispered up to the heavens, "Why must beauty come only through our parting?" But the wind, born from Shu's endless breath, carried no answer, only the quiet hum of balance. For the world, to exist, needed both the ache of distance and the promise of return. Every evening thereafter, when Nut stretched herself across the fading light, she traced her fingers along the curve of the world. Wherever her shadow touched, twilight bloomed, a meeting point between their realms. And in those brief hours, when stars were neither fully awake nor wholly asleep, they found each other again. No words, no form, only a pulse, soft, steady, eternal. The horizon became their meeting place, a sacred threshold where love and loss kissed and parted with every dawn. Mortals began to notice. They built shrines facing west and whispered prayers into the fading sun. They spoke of the tears of the horizon, drops of heaven that carried both blessing and grief. They said if you stood between light and darkness, silent enough, you could hear the sky weep. But the gods heard something different, not sorrow but devotion. For Nut's tears were not despair. They were offerings. Each one fell as a promise that no separation is ever complete, no night endless, no love entirely gone. And as the stars emerged, shimmering like embers in the cooling air, Nut whispered once more to the earth, "Sleep, my beloved. Even the gods must dream." There came a night when even the stars grew weary. Their light, faint and trembling, drifted like dying embers across the black sea of Nut's body. She felt the ache of every sun that fell silent, of every world that forgot its dream. And in that stillness, she began to sing. Her voice was not made of sound but of motion, the slow ripple of galaxies, the hush between waves. Each note wove itself into the fabric of space, tracing invisible threads that reached down to the waiting earth. Geb heard her. He always did. The song spoke of what once was, the warmth of their union, the laughter of rivers newly born, the soft hum of creation before it learned to divide itself. It carried both promise and mourning, as if the night itself were weeping and smiling at once. Shu, the silent witness between them, closed his eyes, for even the god of air could not bear such beauty without breaking. The wind stilled, and the world held its breath. From every temple and dune, mortals lifted their heads to the heavens. They could not understand the melody, but they felt it. A gentle pull beneath the ribs, a memory of something greater. Those who dreamed that night saw endless skies spilling into oceans of gold, and in the morning they woke with tears they could not explain. As her song faded, Nut looked down upon Geb and saw his mountains rise in answer. He struck the earth, and molten light burst forth, his reply to her sorrow. Volcanoes roared, rivers turned to mirrors of fire. It was his way of singing back. Together, their voices shaped the rhythm of time. From their longing came the tides, the seasons, the turning of the sky. Each separation gave birth to a cycle. Death and bloom, dusk and dawn, silence and song. When at last her music waned, Nut whispered one final verse. Beloved, the distance between us is not punishment. It is the space where everything lives. And the world below, hearing her final note, exhaled, as though life itself had just learned to breathe. When the song ended, silence returned, but it was not empty. It carried the echo of love, suspended between the breath of gods and the heartbeat of the world. The mortals below felt it in their bones, though they did not know its name. They called it rest. Geb lay beneath the heavens, his body vast and trembling with quiet. The forests he had raised swayed softly, lulled by the rhythm of the stars above. Every grain of sand, every whispering leaf, carried Nut's presence, her voice woven through the wind. He closed his eyes and dreamed. In his dream, she descended once more, her form made of starlight and mist. She walked upon the air, each step leaving ripples of silver that fell upon his skin as rain. He reached out, and for a moment their worlds aligned. Time itself stilled. The stars halted in their turning. The rivers forgot their way to the sea. It was as if the universe leaned closer, unwilling to disturb the reunion. But all dreams, even divine ones, must fade. When Geb awoke, the stars had moved again, and the dawn crept over the horizon like a memory returning to light. He smiled, though sorrow lingered in his breath, for he knew that sleep had given him what waking could not, a glimpse of her warmth, the touch of her light. And so he began to sleep more often, surrendering the world to twilight so he might dream of her again. The mortals noticed the change. They spoke of nights growing longer, of seasons folding in upon themselves. They brought offerings to the temples, whispering prayers to wake the earth. But Nut, watching from above, knew the truth, that rest was not death but devotion. She sang again, softly this time, her voice threading through the darkness like silk. Her song became the hum of the cosmos, the faint vibration within every living thing. It soothed the mountains and cradled the seas. It told the world that stillness too was sacred. And so Geb slept, not in despair, but in peace. His dreams grew deep, and from them new rivers flowed, new lands rose. Each one was a memory of her touch, reshaped into creation. Far above, Nut watched him and whispered, "Sleep well, my love. When you wake, I will be waiting in the dawn." And the stars shimmered in answer, the quiet applause of the heavens. For 1,000 nights the world dreamed. The stars burned slowly across Nut's skin, tracing stories in silver light. Below, Geb slept in quiet devotion, his pulse the rhythm by which rivers moved and trees remembered. But even dreams must one day wake. The first light came softly, a thread of gold weaving its way through the horizon. It touched Nut's face and shimmered across her tears. And for the first time since the world began, the heavens smiled. She had watched countless dawns rise, but this one felt different. This one felt alive. Deep beneath the soil, Geb stirred. He heard the echo of her laughter carried by the wind, light and distant, yet unmistakable. He opened his eyes, and for a moment, the world itself brightened. Mountains lifted their heads. Rivers glittered as though kissed by the sun. And above them, Nut leaned closer, her voice the hush before the morning bird's song. "Do you remember?" she whispered. And he did. He remembered every storm, every whisper of rain, every moment when light and shadow danced between them. The dawn that broke that day was not the first. It was the return of all that had been waiting. The gods called it Zep-Tepi, the first time reborn. From their reunion came balance once more. Life flowed freely between earth and sky. The wind carried breath, the rain carried renewal. Mortals looked to the heavens and saw beauty, but what they truly saw was memory, the remembering of love that refused to fade. Shu stood between them still, but no longer as a wall. He had become a bridge, the living breath of peace. And in that space where sky and earth met, the world learned again how to begin. Nut's stars faded into daylight, but her heart remained above. Geb's roots reached deep, holding her reflection in every drop of dew. And between them, dawn blossomed, a soft golden silence, endless and whole. The universe sighed, and the gods rested. For love had found its rhythm again. Not through union, not through separation, but through the eternal balance of both. And somewhere within that stillness, Nut whispered one last time, "Sleep now, my beloved. When night returns, so shall I." The horizon glowed, neither day nor night, but something eternal in between. And thus the world continued to turn, forever dreaming of the sky that fell asleep, and the earth that learned to remember.